Okay, here's the second half of our Wisdom of Sea and Sky duplicate cards video. This time we'll be looking at the rest, starting with fighting. First is Onyx, where the new one has worse attributes but is colorless, allowing you to use it in a metal deck with Steelix. Brock works with both cards, and in fact neither is viable at all without it, and the original isn't viable nowadays even with it. Between Jasmine and Metalcoat, the new Onyx is probably playable, but it's bad if you don't grab the supporters you need, and it sucks up turns where you could be playing other supporters too. Original Pseudo-Widow is a decent card for getting potshots on EX Pokemon, and amusingly will one-shot EV-EX with red, though ironically it can one-touch a normal EV. The new one is a generic attacking basic, similar to Hitmontop, and probably has no real viability even on Lucario decks. Gligar is another card that loses damage to be colorless, which has synergy with the new Gliscor, which is also colorless. It's funny how every single type has a 100 HP stage 1 that hits 60 for 2 energies, but now Gliscor abruptly outclasses basically all of them, since fighting is generally the best type in the game for hitting weaknesses. It's literally a playable card in any deck, but most decks are too specialized to make room for it. The old Gliscor is weaker, but does have the interesting talent of killing Eevee on turn 3 3/4 of the time, which is sadly not enough to make it useful. The whole Swinub line are different types, and thus not competing for deck slots. I don't think either line is very good due to their huge energy requirements, though Cape Water Mamoswine has the interesting quirk of living through Charizard's Crimson Storm. Not that you even KO it back. I simply love all the Crochet cards, but new Phanpy is much better than the old one, especially in the current meta. You can one-shot common mons like Zubat, or even Eevee with a Giovanni, which can end games on the spot. The self-damage is not only very manageable since you have more HP anyway, but it also sets you up to use Lyra, which can get in a Rampardos or something. I'd run the new one every time, no question. Old Hitmontop is a mediocre attacking basic which only has some consideration on Lucario decks. The new one is a fighting type Pheromosa and is quite useful for setting up Cyrus later on, and it's also quite useful on Lucario decks honestly. The new one has more of a use case to me. Fighting classically used Hitmonlee for its benched attacking, and that one's more focused damage might be better even though it's doing less damage overall than Hitmontop. The Tyrannitars are different types and thus aren't competing for deck slots. However, the Larvitars and Pipitars are all fighting type, and it's a bit more complicated. Obviously, if you're using a dark deck, you'll use the colorless ones, but on a fighting deck, you'd probably still use the Guard Press Pipitar just for its cheaper attack and better stability thanks to the damage mitigation. I've been seeing a lot of people use the Zubat cards as an example of pure power creep, since they seem to get continuously better. I have seen Crobat on a deck with no dark energy, and you would use the original Zubat there, but I don't think it's a great deck these days. The new Zubat simply outclasses the middle one on every possible target except Regice and Arceus EX, especially if Nihilego is in play. Unlike Zubat, Golbat is actually a hard call. The first one is the strongest, and the only one which works on all deck types, but the middle one has the most HP, and the new one is slightly stronger than the middle one thanks to Poison, though not as strong as the original if the opponent evolves or switches out. If you're using Nihilego, use the new one, but otherwise any of the three is okay. That being said, all Crobats need only one energy, so you'd rather use Rare Candy, and maybe only one of these if you want. Original Murkrow is an attacker. The new one shuffles the opponent's cards back into their deck on a coin flip, which sounds pretty funny, especially when paired with Dark Pendant. I'd probably just use the attacking one though. New Honchkrow is a 2-energy attacker, but actually has a very impressive HP stat. However, the original's ability to hit bench mons is probably more useful overall. Both Sneasels have the same general stats and average damage, but the new one is consistent while the old one is variable. Weavile EX powers up only if the opponent has taken damage, which makes the new one much more useful I think, given that the original will occasionally do 0. The Houndours are different types, same with the Houndooms, as such they're not competing for deck slots. To me, both Houndooms seem on the cusp of viability, but they're waiting for the right teammates. Absol's original card does bonus damage to any target with a status condition, but is extremely middling if they don't have a status. It's not that good right now, but might become incredibly strong at any moment if the right teammates are introduced. The new one is just a dark-type clone of Hitmonlee, and is incredibly good with the new Umbreon card, and honestly pretty good in general. Somehow, there have now been 4 Mawile cards, and literally all of them are outclassed by Skarmory. Spearow trades 10 HP for 10 damage, but does it in the useful way where it hits 70 HP, so I'd probably actually run the Glide one. The new Fearow is a hilarious counterpick if you know your friend likes running grass, but isn't that good against any other type, while the original is playable but profoundly unimpressive, and I've never seen anyone touch it. Just when I thought they could never make a Chansey as cute as the original, the new one is close but gets pushed over the edge by the notion of watching it scrunch up. Both cards take way too much energy, but the new one is a bit more workable, plus it has synergy with Will, which also works with Blissey EX. The original Kangaskhan is actually quite good in Alima decks as an early game attacker, which will sometimes one-shot basics, but its average damage isn't too impressive. The new Kanga actually looks pretty good too, getting 60 damage on evolved targets, which isn't enough to one-shot anything without Giovanni, but does set up some kills down the line. Notably, a 20 into a 60 will kill a lot of stage 1 cards, and it's just as good in Alima recipients as the original was. Both cards are playable in decks that would be using Alima anyway, as early game attackers that give bench Pokemon time to ramp. Eevee now has 7 cards, and I couldn't think of a way to lay out 7 cards cleanly, so I just drew an 8th Eevee to fill in the empty space. I thought the Collect Eevee would be the king going forward, but actually the latest Find a Friend one is usually better, giving you insurance against bricking and also making it more likely to draw Sylveon EX, which will help you pull your whole deck faster. I'd use this newest Eevee on all decks going forward, unless you're just playing to make Twitter highlight videos, in which case I'd run the Continuous Steps one. Porygon is actually the first example we've ever had of a new card being an exact duplicate of a previous one, and honestly, given how meticulously they've avoided it for every single other card, I have to wonder if it was legitimately an accident, like if they straight up forgot Beam Porygon existed. The Data Scan one is pretty cool as usual, but the low HP leaves you vulnerable to Skarm or Phanpy. Porygon 2's original card is quite good, but the new one is awesome. When you attach an energy to it, it automatically evolves into a Porygon Z which is drawn from your deck, basically giving you a free rare candy and a Pokeball that works specifically on Porygon Z at the same time. Its attack is almost irrelevant since you'll just be a Porygon Z, though only the first Porygon 2 can attack with 1 energy, so I suppose it's not completely outclassed. I'd always run the second one. The new Porygon Z is only a bit weaker than the old one, but it attacks for cheaper, which is great with the new P2 card. It makes attacks used by the defending Pokemon 1 energy more expensive, which is awesome because it's energy they can't put onto their bench, potentially even preventing you from being attacked. The old card isn't bad, but I'd definitely be playing the new one currently. Hoothoot's new card has less HP and needs an extra energy to attack, which are both really annoying, and it's only barely stronger. The advantage is that it can't be put to sleep, but most attacks that inflict sleep will just kill this in one hit. Not to mention sleep is cured anyway half the time, and 100% of the time when you evolve. I'd run the first one no questions asked. Noctowl has that same attack that Mantine had, but it's cheaper and does more damage. The energy cost is a bit high. I guess if you get it up and play it alongside Will, it's probably decent, but you can do better. The old Noctowl card was nothing special, and I wouldn't run either one. Our last card's are the Apom line. The new Apom doesn't attack, but instead draws cards from the deck until you match your opponent's hand size, which is situationally a really awesome draw effect, but probably not good enough to warrant running Apom. Its evolution Ambipom is just 40 damage for 1 energy, and it's outclassed by at least 1 card from every other type, not to mention the previous Ambipom. Alright, that's the last of them. Thanks for watching everyone. Hope next set is a mini set so we have time to breathe.